not for all, even not for all. So the word jihad has been used in 35 verses in Holy Quran. 31 verses out of 35 have no reference of qital, of fighting or warfare in the Holy Quran. 31 verses out of 35, they are totally free of reference of fighting or a just warfare. Even I am talking of just warfare. Even the word jihad has not been revealed at 31 places in Holy Quran, not in connection of a lawful warfare, no fighting. Neither in the text of the verse, nor in its context. No reference in the text, and no reference in the context of that verse, before or after. 31 verses out of 35. One more thing. Warfare is not known as jihad, technically speaking. There are 5 kinds. Jihad bin nafs, for self-purification. Jihad means struggle, exertion, putting your full efforts for some good cause. It is jihad bin nafs, self-purification. Then jihad bil ilm, you are struggling for spreading of knowledge. This institute is engaged in jihad, spreading knowledge, creating harmony, interfaith harmony and dialogue, and bringing awareness to the communities. This is jihad of knowledge. There are hadiths. I have a full book on this subject. Every kind of jihad, I have 5 books on those, on every single kind of jihad. But instead of mentioning references, I will just summarize this. The third is jihad bil amal, struggling for social reforms. All democratic efforts for social reforms, fighting against corruption, fighting against social evils, all these. As you fight against your lower self, the evils of the lower self, your arrogance, your greed, your lust, your all bad propensities and tendencies. In the same way, wrong social tendencies of the society, which make the society corrupt. Fighting against them in a peaceful way is jihad bil amal. Jihad bin nafs, jihad bil ilm, for knowledge, jihad bil amal, with your practical struggle for the social reforms. Fourth is jihad bil mal. It is act of charity, spending your money for alleviation of poverty, for resolving the economic deadlock of the poor, for helping the people. So this is jihad. And fifth is jihad bil qital. It is known as qital, the lawful war in your defense. There is a defensive war. Then again there are the objectives, 5 objectives, but none of them is offensive. All are defensive, just, lawful, and for good cause. This is the 5th one. Qital is used for warfare. And I mean just warfare. If it is not just, if it is not within the proper framework of the objectives, if it is not fulfilling the requirements and basic conditions of a jihad, then this is a criminal act of killing of mankind. This is terrorism. So there is a clear-cut differentiation between the act of terrorism and the act of jihad. Act of jihad is the concept of lawful war as it has been approved by the UNO Charter. The same is in Quran and Hadith. Now, second important point, I have gone through the whole of Quran, Alhamd to Fatih and to Wan-Nas. I have not found a single verse in Holy Quran, single verse, which contains the word jihad and qital together in a single verse. The whole of Quran is free of this combination. The qital, the word qital and jihad both are never mentioned in Holy Quran in one verse. To avoid misunderstanding and confusion, people may not take necessarily the jihad as qital. Qital means lawful warfare. There are only 4 verses which mention the reference of lawful warfare and lawful fighting or qital with the word jihad, but not in the same verse, just in the context. And all these 4 verses has been revealed in only one surah, At-Tawbah. Verses are 4, but if you count the places, there are only 2. Only 2 places where the word jihad is revealed in a specific verse, and there is reference of lawful fighting before that verse or after that verse. So total 4 verses in number, but 2 places, and in only one surah. not in the whole of Quran. So the word jihad is used absolutely free of the concept of qital, except those 4. And there is defensive warfare. These were the 3 basic points. Another significant point is that everybody knows that qital, I mean lawful warfare, defensive war, to take up the arms, even your armed resistance against aggression and oppression and persecution, against armed resistance or a defensive war. In 13 years of Meccan period, the companions were totally forbidden to take up the arms even against any kind of oppression, cruelty, persecution or aggression. They were just commanded for patience. 13 years. When Holy Prophet ﷺ migrated to Medina, the first verse, it was revealed, it was in Surah Al-Hajj 22, verse number 39. أُذِنَ لِلَّذِينَ يُقَاتَلُونَ بِأَنَّهُمْ ظُلِمُوا. These are the places of Quran which absolutely clarifies the concept of jihad in qital. It said, permission is granted to take up the arms, to fight those who have already enforced war on you. Permission is granted to take up the arms, to resist with arms and fight against aggression or oppression which has already been committed on you. So this resistance against oppression, permission was granted in the 14th year of the proclamation of prophethood. This verse of Surah Hajj. Second verse, for proper defensive war. That was revealed in 7th year of Hijrah. It means 20 years had already passed. The proclamation of the prophethood. 13 years of Meccan period and 7 years of Medinan period. It was after the Treaty of Hudaybiyah was breached. That was a treaty between the Mecca and Medina, Holy Prophet and the Meccans. A treaty of peace. That was a truce for 10 years. It was a no-war pact for 10 years. There would be no war. And there would be no assistance and help for their allies of each other. For 10 years. But the Meccans broke. They breached this treaty of peace. This treaty of Hudaybiyah took place in 6th year of Hijrah. And on 7th year, this verse was revealed. Defensive war. 20 years after proclamation of Holy Prophet's prophethood. And the word was Qatilu fi sabilillah alladhina yuqatilunakum wala ta'tadu. Now you can fight those who have already started fight against you. Categorical verses. This is not my interpretation. This is the text of Quran. Qatilu alladhina yuqatilunakum. Now you are allowed, you can fight those who are already fighting against you. Those who were imposed war against you. This was absolutely, without any confusion, categorical concept of defensive war. And this is permissible in every country, in every nation, in every time. Right, starting from very old periods of Aristotle to today, even those time. So this was revealed. And only 3 years later, then the kinds of war they were given, these wars were always just defensive and nothing else. So the very important thing which we have to concentrate on is that when qital was prohibited, even defensive warfare and taking up of arms to stop the aggression against you, that was prohibited. In Meccan period, 5 verses of jihad were revealed. 5 verses of jihad were revealed in Mecca, when the companions were not allowed even to take up the arms for their individual self-defense. In those days, the commandment of jihad was there. So this fact makes everything clear that commandment of jihad was in Meccan period, in practice, when taking up arms for your self-defense was forbidden even. So those 5 verses which were revealed, they were from Surah Al-Furqan 52, Ankabut 6, Ankabut 8, Ankabut 69 and Luqman 15. These were 5 verses which were revealed in Mecca when Holy Prophet ﷺ and Quran and Sunnah, they totally had already banned to take up the arms for your self-defense. And when you take up the arms for your self-defense, then there are the conditions, specific conditions. And you can't take up the arms, you can't fight the lawful concept of jihad. There are certain conditions which you are supposed to fulfill. If you don't fulfill those prerequisites and conditions, then jihad is not jihad. Jihad means qital, the warfare. Lawful warfare, it converts into act of terrorism. Number one, not a single individual or a group of individuals or an organization is allowed to take up the arms in any case. This is the first condition. There is a unanimity of opinion. I have made a full chapter on this subject, and Holy Prophet has declared it categorically in Muslim, Sahih Hadith, Bukhari, Muslim, Abu Dawud, Sunan, Bayhaqi, every book of Hadith contains the chapter. That only this is a privilege or right of the state to declare a warfare. Just or unjust, this is a separate question now. But it would be according to Islam if it is for just cause, for your self-defense. So this is the privilege and right of the state, of the governments. This is a matter between state to state and government to government. Not a single individual is allowed to do that. First condition. Number two, there is no warfare or act of killing against non-combatants. Absolutely no. Just against combatants. So all suicide bombings being committed in any part of the world becomes totally haram and against the commandments of Quran and Sunnah. Suicide is also haram. So it combines two kinds of acts of haram. It is haram, killing your own self. And then it is a killing of mankind too. So two basic conditions. The third, there should be a just cause. And the just cause I have already explained. If we go through the Holy Quran, the specific causes are either one is your self-defense. You can fight only for your self-defense. It comes in Holy Quran. Just to quote Surah Al-Baqarah 190. Self-defense. Number two, fighting against violence, brutality, and terrorism. This is the second objective. And this has been declared, this terrorism and brutality, violence has been declared as fitna. To make peace and harmony, to restore the peace and harmony, and to eliminate the fitna. So this comes in Baqarah 193 and Anfal 39. Second objective of the lawful war. Third, to help the oppressed people. As all these things are permissible in United Nations charters. To help the oppressed people where there is abuse of human rights. As it was done in case of Iraq or particularly in case of Kosovo. When Security Council resolutions from 1199 to 1244 were passed, where the law was passed for collective intervention in order to stop the abuse of human rights. The UNO Security Council, dozens of, after Iraq war in 1990 and then 92, in many occasions. And then this thing prevailed, the sovereignty of light, and before that sovereignty concept used to prevail on everything. Then human rights became the more forceful concept. So you are allowed to interfere with collectively. That's why the NATO forces interfere with that. And this is being carried on up till today. So in the same way, if there is abuse of human rights, the people are being killed, persecution is going on, oppression is going on, violence and brutality, and act is being carried on, to stop them. This is the third objective. And this thing comes in Surah An-Nisa, verse 75. Then again, fourth is, again if there two states were at war, and then there was a truce, treaty of peace, and that other country breached the treaty of peace, and by that breach of peace, the state of war was restored again, and they were planning to attack you. So this is a preemptive war to save yourself in your self-defense. But again, this is not an offensive war. So this one, again, it is quoted in Surah Anfal, verse number 39. And in spite of all these four basic objectives of war, up till Surah Tawbah, and here comes some people mention and quote the verse of sword of Surah At-Tawbah. And some people wrongly consider that the Surah At-Tawbah, the particular verse known as verse of sword, that repealed and abrogated all verses which I have mentioned and quoted before. That is again totally wrong.